What's up, boyos? You've all seen this dude before. In fact, you'd have to be living under a rock if you haven't encountered this picture somewhere. He is Gigachad. That's right, not just any Chad, but Gigachad. And according to Wikipedia, Gigachad is a 10 out of 10 Chad who is within the top 0.01% in terms of physical attractiveness. He is considered the ultimate male. His impressive muscular physique intimidates the shit out of the majority of men on our planet. Gigachad has incredible facial aesthetics and symmetry, tall stature, and has the physique of a Greek god. Gigachad mogs all other Chads, and is taller, more muscular, and blessed with more masculine facial features than the average Chad. A heterosexual woman's reaction to seeing the Gigachad is the equivalent to how moths react to a light bulb. At least in theory. But as it turns out, reality isn't as kind towards Gigachad as the internet is. The problem is, well, the Gigachad doesn't actually seem to be rated as attractive by women as he is by men. In this video, I will share the results from a recent survey of men and women who rated the Gigachad's facial attractiveness. Let's have a look. 237 participants were recruited via combined web form and snowball sampling on Twitter and YouTube. Of these, 76, or 32%, were women, and 158, or 67%, were men. Participants were asked to rate the Gigachad's photo on a scale from 1 to 7. Let's take a look at the results. At 3.58, the average rating women gave the Gigachad was significantly lower than the rating men gave, which was 4.88. This was statistically significant. As this was a 7-point scale, the midpoint on this scale was 4. The average rating given by women was therefore below average. That's right. Women rated the Gigachad as unattractive. It's over for Gigachad. Gigachad's face was polarizing for both men and women. Men and women returned very few midpoint or average ratings. However, female ratings clustered most around unattractive, 2 out of 7, while male ratings clustered most around attractive, 6 out of 7. Men thought that Gigachad was quite a handsome fellow, but women did not. Put another way, 38% of women rated the Gigachad between slightly attractive to very attractive, while 59% of women rated the Gigachad between slightly unattractive to very unattractive. If we close in on the bottom or top categories, the 6 out of 7 and 7 out of 7 ratings, this was only 24% of women. Fewer than 1/4 of women viewed the Gigachad as a Chad at all. 39% of women rated the Gigachad between a 1 out of 7 and a 2 out of 7. To compare, 46% of men rated the Gigachad a 6 out of 7 or a 7 out of 7, and 14% of men rated him as a 1 out of 7 or 2 out of 7. So the question really is, do men and women rate faces differently? Let's examine facial masculine dimorphism and facial attractiveness. Sexual dimorphism refers to sex-based general differences between men and women. For example, the average larger size of men is a dimorphic trait. We express dimorphism in our faces. Men have more robust brows, larger jaws, and more facial hair. Women have more fat in their lips and cheeks, therefore look more neotenous. There are many more examples. We tend to recognize masculine and feminine features on an intuitive level. As these are sexually dimorphic traits, it has been hypothesized that they have a relationship with sexual attractiveness. When it comes to facial dimorphism in women who have more feminine facial traits, results are consistent. According to a 2006 study, men and women both report more feminine faces to be more attractive. For men and masculine facial dimorphism, however, the results are inconsistent or mixed. We occasionally see facial masculinity predictive of higher attractiveness, occasionally lower, and sometimes having no relationship at all. This study found a small negative association with facial masculinity and the attractiveness of male faces. Average faces, as in dimorphically average, not of average attractiveness, were considered more attractive. However, a more recent meta-analysis of 56 effect sizes from 2017 found no preference for masculinity or femininity in male faces. Ask yourself the question, which version of that guy would women actually find more attractive? While attractiveness is not subjective or random, attractiveness is also not absolute. Individuals vary more in their ratings and perception of attractiveness than the average ratings of certain groups indicate. This effect can be seen in the Gigachad survey results. Just simply looking at the data, might not show you the whole picture about how much individuals disagree about a face. Let's take a look at facial masculine dimorphism as it relates to facial attractiveness. One study from 2016 found that when women were allowed to adjust the masculinity of a face, imagine a character creation slider in a video game, they turned the masculinity down. In fact, they reduced masculinity a lot, by about 40%. In another study, women preferred edited faces that were more feminine. These faces were rated about 1 point higher on a 7-point Likert scale. A similar study found a preference for male faces that had been edited to be more feminine. A different study manipulated the faces of participants to be more or less masculine. Men rated their own faces to be more attractive when manipulated to be more masculine. However, women did not rate men's faces to be more attractive following the masculinization manipulation. A 2013 study used natural faces that were pre-rated for masculinity. Unlike much of the research using computer-manipulated faces, natural faces rated high in masculinity were more attractive than average and low masculinity faces. Highly masculine faces were twice as attractive as faces rated at the lowest level of masculinity. Additionally, women rated masculine faces as more desirable for both short-term and long-term relationships. This is contrary to what would be expected in the ovulatory shift, or dual mating hypothesis, where facial masculinity signals good genes for short-term relationships. So maybe that could be the reason why Gigachad isn't universally seen as attractive by women. He just doesn't look real or like an actual human, and this turns some women off. Once real male faces were naturally more masculine, women responded a lot more positively. I mean, what women would rate naturally masculine faces of guys like Henry Cavill, Brad Pitt, or Jason Momoa as unattractive? It makes sense, but for men it doesn't seem to work that way. They seem to prefer more masculine facial traits. Whether they were computer-edited or real doesn't seem to matter as much. Let's compare facial dimorphism with masculinity. Are people really rating the most dimorphic faces as the most masculine? The terms dimorphic and masculine are often used interchangeably in the literature. It could be the case, however, that the faces we perceive as more masculine may not be more dimorphic. If this were the case, it could also help reconcile why we see opposite findings for masculinized edited faces and naturally masculine faces. Beards are a dimorphic trait like height or broader shoulders, while a masculine trait would be a broader jaw or a more protruding brow ridge. A 2010 study used geometric morphometric techniques to determine the objective dimorphism of male faces. When faces were assessed for masculinity this way, no relationship emerged between ratings of facial attractiveness and masculinity. However, when subjective ratings of masculinity were used, then correlations with attractiveness reappeared. More masculine faces were rated as more attractive across two samples. In other words, what we see as masculine in a face may not be closely related to the real sexual dimorphism of that face. Let's take a look at facial hair and how it alters women's perception of male attractiveness. A key masculine dimorphic trait is facial hair. As the Gigachad has stubble in his photos, this may have influenced ratings of attractiveness. That said, female preferences for facial hair seem to be much more consistent than preferences for masculine facial traits. One study found that light and dark stubble were rated as more attractive than clean-shaven faces. And another study from the year 2013 similarly found that heavy stubble was rated more attractive than clean-shaven, lightly stubbled, and bearded faces. The increase in attractiveness for stubbled faces was about 1 point higher on a 5-point Likert scale. And in another study from 2016, women indicated a preference for heavy stubble, and there was an interaction with facial attractiveness. I want to share one final chart from a 2017 study showing the interaction with facial hair and facial masculinity. All types of facial hair were preferred over clean-shaven faces. So in conclusion, if you are able to grow a beard, just having a light stubble will increase your attractiveness in the eyes of women. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you'll get laid, but it will at the very least increase your chances, especially if you have what people would colloquially refer to as a baby face. The bottom line on facial attractiveness research. Across data sets of faces, we have seen that mean inter-rater correlation for facial attractiveness is high. This means that people tend to rate faces similarly on average. Beauty is therefore not subjective or random. So who's right, men or women? Well, the Gigachad was rated below average, but you would be misled to believe that he is a hopeless incel based on his mean rating. Many women do find him attractive. You can see this in the distribution of scores. It may not have been most women, but it was many. It was plenty. You don't need most women to find you attractive to be successful in dating. You don't even need a majority. You only need to find one woman who finds you attractive. So to sum up the points made in this video, most women did not find the Gigachad attractive, but most men did. Mean inter-rater agreement on facial attractiveness is high. Preferences for facial dimorphism, masculinity, are mixed. Low preferences for facial masculinity in research may be due to methodology using edited photos. Facial hair is viewed as more attractive than clean-shaven faces on average. So that's it for the video. I hope this one didn't bore you to death, and hopefully I will be seeing you in the next one. Adios, peace out.